So everyone's talking about how the Supreme Court recently has agreed to hear Trump's immunity case. Now you remember a while back, Trump's lawyers were effectively making the argument that presidents are immune from everything they do while they're in office. I think they literally used an example of like the president could order somebody's murder, and they would be immune as president. Um, well, so the Supreme Court has, like I said, agreed to decide on this, which a lot of commentators are not happy about. So I wanted to play for you this quick, this short video from MSNBC's YouTube channel, and then we can talk about it.
There, and joining us now is NBC News legal analyst and former federal prosecutor Andrew Weissmann. He is co-author of the new book, The Trump Indictments, the Historic Charging Documents, with commentary. Andrew, good morning. So I'm so curious to hear your reaction to this ruling that we heard yesterday, at least this idea that the Supreme Court is going to hear arguments on April 22nd. We know their decisions come down in late June. Then you can schedule a few months between June and whenever the trial might start. We're getting awfully close to Election Day at that point. So first of all, some have said this is just the Supreme Court saying we adjudicated this, we heard it, insulating itself from any criticism, and then perhaps ruling that no, the president does not have full immunity. What is your sense of things, number one? And number two, how long this may delay the trial?
Well, I'm very pessimistic. I do not have the view that they took this case because they're going to hand out a win to Donald Trump in the Colorado case, but here they're going to essentially give him a defeat by saying there is no presidential immunity in this case. Yes, of course, I think ultimately they will not grant immunity in this case, but they have given him the win because the DC case, let's just face it, is on life support now. It is really, really hard to figure out how this case gets to trial before the election. And I think that's the end result of what they did here. So they may ultimately say that he does not have immunity, but in fact, he will have been given immunity because the case will not go to trial before the election. Meaning if Joe Biden wins, the case goes forward, but if he loses, the case is over. I think it's worth noting the other sort of big picture item is any normal politician, any person who was accused of a crime that they did not do would want to clear his name. And so what's happening here is the reason one thinks it's a win for Donald Trump is he's trying to avoid at all costs the facts of what happened that are charged in this indictment, that they do not get presented in court where facts actually matter and people will hear it. So he can continue to say publicly this is all just a smear campaign by his political adversary, and avoid actually having this confronted by a jury to assess those claims that he's making publicly.
Okay, so basically, what the reason this is so alarming is the timing. The goal is to, get Trump on trial before Election Day. If he's in trial before Election Day, one, I think that will hurt him even more in the voting booth. But two, we want to prevent a situation where Donald Trump can try to weasel his way out of the case. Well, no, not weasel his way out of the case. If he were to become president again, then these cases would effectively be over. We've never had a president pardon himself before. But that would be, a scandal beyond belief. But I don't think there's anything that says they technically cannot. And that's what's so alarming when you have a malignant narcissist and man-child like Donald Trump. He really sees winning the presidency as his, ticket home. As if he can just do that, he's in the clear. He's golden. He can, order these investigations to be dropped, or he can pardon himself. All the rest. So that's why we, we desperately want Trump to be on trial before the election. And the Supreme Court has now just kicked the can even more down the road. And, has kicked the can down the road over a case that I would say is really just patently absurd. I mean, does anybody really think that a president is just immune for everything they do? I mean, that is the height of despotism and insanity. I mean, granted, I would say that the presidents in the past have done things that they should have been held accountable for, but were not. So, I mean, I think in pursuit of American empire, I think presidents have done some pretty terrible things. I mean, Chomsky has that old quote, if the Nuremberg laws were applied, every post-war president would be hanged. Post-World War II president. So, to some extent, presidents have had, a degree of immunity just because, we're the most powerful country on earth. And so we can get, we can throw our weight around with little repercussions. But I don't think most, most lawyers, most judges, most legal scholars would say that presidents are truly immune from anything, from prosecution, no matter what they do. And as that specialist was saying, I think it's basically impossible for the Supreme Court to say that he is in fact immune. I don't see what possible legal argument would be in their avenue to do that. But having said that, this is still alarming because it is the chances of him going to a trial over this at this point now are very, very unlikely. Not impossible, but the chances dropped. The probability dropped significantly. So yeah, the Supreme Court has once again made a terrible decision that is has only the potential to hurt people. But we'll see what happens going forward.